Everyone, thank you for logging on, listening, and being part of the Crypto Mom 2 talk show. I am really excited to be back on to share some information that is very dear and near to my heart, which is all about law. Because as many of you know, in addition to being a talk show host and producer, I am also an attorney, as well as a cryptocurrency investor, Bitcoin miner, and a whole slew of other things. The whole purpose of Crypto Mom 2 talk show is all about education, and as well as to inspire you to kind of step out, learn more, do your research. I do want to say that nothing on the show is financial advice, so you definitely always have to know that there's risk in everything that you do. Always make sure that whatever you do in the blockchain or cryptocurrency area that you're comfortable with. Again, it is a fascinating area. And with that, today I have on a very special guest that I'm super excited to be talking to, because Eric actually has so many similar interests that I do. And we've been having so many conversations. It's been going from one to the other. So I told him we have to get this recorded because I want to share with everyone my excitement about who he is and what he's doing, because he is helping and inspiring and educating so many people in this field that know and do not know. And for me, that is so important because this technology in this field is changing, it's evolving, and we all need to be part of this transformation, because just like when the internet first happened and people were saying, what is the internet? You know, people are saying now, what's blockchain? And that's going to be, you know, for some of us, we're in the kindergarten side, others are in the graduate side, and we all need to be pulled together and come forward so we all have a basic knowledge. So with that, I want to say, Eric, welcome. Thank you so much. How are you doing today?
I am well, Jackie. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to this.
Yeah, so your background is so diverse. I mean, we were talking about how you are both a recognized author, an international speaker, an attorney. You are a trainer. You're a consultant to individuals and corporations. I don't know what it is that you haven't done yet. And as I told you, I'm, definitely feeling like I'm following in your footsteps, because you're already more than 20 steps ahead, but I am so honored and excited to have you here. Today, we're going to be talking about your story. So, not everything that we do is successful, but not everything that we do is not successful. So I know that where did you actually grow up? Where did you start?
So I was born in Brooklyn, New York. I was raised in Long Island. And after Long Island, I went to Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia. And I was actually pre-med. I actually graduated to go to med school.
I know. That's what I was going to ask you. Why did you switch from pre-med over to law?
Well, at the time, Morehouse has a way of getting you very socially active. So I was engaged in a lot of, community activism, attending rallies, coordinating fundraisers, trying to help the underrepresented in our community. So somehow that kind of morphed into politics. So I was asked to work for some political campaigns. And my first campaign I was asked to work for was the Paul Simon campaign, back then running for president. And then when his campaign dropped off, the Jackson campaign picked me up. So after that, after Super Tuesday, Jackson didn't go any further, and the Dukakis campaign picked me up. And throughout all those conversations, they say, what? You should be an attorney. What are you doing? You should be a lawyer. So enough folks said it that it kind of got into my head. And but I hadn't taken the LSAT. This was my senior year. So I hadn't taken the LSAT. So I had to take a year off. I turned down my admissions to med school, which, they were like, are you crazy? But I turned them down. And I ended up going to law school instead, and ended up going to Columbia Law School.
Yeah, which is my brother, as you realized, went to Columbia. And so we have, a commonality there. Mm-hmm. So after you graduated from law school, what were you doing?
So my first job was as a district attorney. I was a DA in Brooklyn, New York. And it was a lot of work, long hours, and very, very little pay. So graduating with, I mean, I had gotten some financial help through merit-based scholarships at Columbia, but still didn't cover everything.
Right.
So I graduated with a fairly decent amount of law school debt, not as many as some other folks, but still it was there. And living in New York City is an expensive city. So
Yeah.
after a few years, I was like, you know what? It's time for me to leave New York. So I moved to Hartford, Connecticut, and I became an assistant commission counsel for the state of Connecticut up there. And I was up there for a number of years.
So, how did you transition into blockchain? We're going to get to that. I think that the in-between part was that you created the Better Me, Better We, or where did that come from? Because that's for everyone. Eric and I connected on Alignable, but we're also on LinkedIn. We're on a lot of different social media platforms. And I was looking at his profile and I was just asking him the questions about that. And it has a really interesting story. So why don't you share?
Yeah, so thank you. So after Hartford, I moved to Charlotte, North Carolina. When I was in Charlotte, I was working for the banks, and then the mortgage crisis hit. And that was just a devastating impact on Charlotte. Charlotte was basically a two-pony town, Bank of America and back then Wachovia. So there's a lot of layoffs, a lot of folks lost jobs. Charlotte became like a ghost town. I kind of saw it coming, so I began to design this company called Better Me, Better We. And Better We has two different meanings. We is an acronym for medical, economics, wedlock, and education, which are the four areas the diversity community has its greatest challenges. But as a big fan of Muhammad Ali, it's also an homage to him because he was one time asked, he was known to rhyme and make poetry. And someone asked him to make the shortest poem possible. He said, me, we. And that was his poem. So Better Me, Better We was born out of that.
That's beautiful.
Thank you. I mean, people love that story. So I designed it to be like an internet company, because back then people were sponsoring stuff and writing articles on the internet. But I never really had that knack to do that. And towards the end of the mortgage crisis, I moved to DC and got a contract position in the DC area. And I began to do a lot of global traveling. And one of my first trips was to Thailand, to Bangkok, Thailand. I was training some Thai diplomats and diplomats from other regions as well in Bangkok. And on the way back home in that long 24-hour flight, I was thinking to myself, man, I'm an international speaker now. This is awesome. And then I said, well, wait a minute, this could be the new iteration of Better Me, Better We. So I broke out a paper, and I started scribbling down some thoughts of how I could make that transition. So it became a consulting and training company instead of an internet-based company. And since then, it's really progressed in that vein. And what really though made it successful was my first book, Diversify or Die. You don't get paid to be a speaker unless you're recognized as an expert in something. So one of the most, I won't say the easiest, but one of the most common ways you can become a recognized speaker in something is to be an author of a successful book. So I wrote Diversify or Die, which is about diversity and inclusion. And that was my first book. And my second book is now Blockchain or Die.
And I believe that we have the Diversify or Die here.
Yep.
So, and the links, everyone will definitely be in the block below. Before we get to the blockchain, is this, who would you say is the audience for Diversify or Die? Who did you write it for?
I wrote it for anyone that has any type of interest in diversity and inclusion in any kind of organization, corporation, university, non-for-profit, small business. In my mind, diversity and inclusion belongs in every type of organization. So if you're a manager looking to figure out how to incorporate diversity and inclusion into your business group or into your this circle of influence with supervisors. If you're an employee and you want to figure out how to better serve an employee resource group or how to bring diversity ideas to your organization or wherever you work, Diversify or Die gives you that template. it's very unique because I actually teach people about the definition of diversity and an actual plan to create diversity steps. And no other book really does that. One of the challenges with diversity and inclusion is that everyone defines it differently. And if you go to an organization and you ask the employees, what's the organization's definition of diversity? I have found that either one, no one really knows it, or two, they all think it's something different. Well, how can diversity advance when no one's on the same page? So one of the formulas I have in here is, to teach organizations how to make an all-inclusive diversity formula and diversity statement with the buy-in from their senior staff and from their employees. And that has been very successful. I still get calls on this today on how to make this work for their organization.
So that brings up a really good point. So why don't you go ahead and share with everyone, how can people reach out to you? That information will be in the block below, but how can people reach out to you?
So I have different websites and different emails, different books, but the overall is the Better Me, Better We email, and it's Eric, ERIC .Guthrie, GUTHRIE at Better Me, Better We, one word, no spaces, bettermebetterwe.com.
And if for some reason you don't have a pen and paper, just remember to come back either to the Crypto Mom 2 talk show, or this will also be on the JCooperTravels talk show. You can go on to either of those talk shows and find this episode, and you'll be able to write it down. So you wrote this first book and you're doing consulting on this. What happened next?
So I was giving I wrote this in 2016. And I was giving a bunch of speeches in the 2017 timeframe. And I had learned about Bitcoin and really Bitcoin before blockchain, but both within the same timeframe. And then I would go to a lot of my book signings and I would speak about Diversify or Die. And then at the end, I would say, by the way, let me ask you a question. What do you guys know about Bitcoin or Ethereum or the blockchain? And out of an entire year with, I probably had about 1,000 people over the year at my book signings, 5 people, I can count on one hand, knew about cryptos and blockchain. So I said, you know what? That's my next book. I was going to write another book about diversity and inclusion, but I decided to put that aside for a minute. And then I wrote Blockchain or Die instead, because the message needs to get out there. Not a lot of folks know about it. They need to know about it. It's the technology. It's the business solutions, it's the finance for the future. And if you don't know about it, by the time you find out about it, it may be too late. So that's why I'm trying to get the message out there. And I thank you for this platform.
Yeah, no, of course. And I totally agree with you, because I'm often asked, and I just became involved with the crypto side about 1.5 years ago, but I've been doing a deep dive in. And I've heard people say, well, crypto is going to replace the dollar. I said, no, it's not. Cryptocurrency is sort of like MasterCard or Visa or Amex or, Discover. You're going to have options. It's not replacing, it's just giving you options. The other thing about this technology is it's going to provide so much more creativity for some of the commerce that can happen, and security as well. So, there's so much that I'm learning that I'm just fascinated about. And that's why I love connecting with yourself and others who have already done this. Now, you and I have we're going to have many more conversations. So everyone definitely has to like and subscribe to Crypto Mom 2 and JCooperTravels, because you are, as an expert, you've created different workshops for those in the field as well as that are not. So those that are listening, definitely we're going to have future conversations about all these different workshops. I'm going to be attending. I'll be doing, a commentary afterwards with Eric, so that way we can do highlights about why you need to be thinking about incorporating this into your business, whether it's your point of sale, whether it's thinking about, how can you create, a token or NFTs. There's so many. I know this is language and terminology that some people might not be familiar with, but like you said, it's blockchain or die. If you don't think about how do you integrate this technology, then you might be left behind. So, and now your book is pretty thick. Are there certain chapters and how did you structure your book?
So I structured my book, by the way, excellent question. I structured my book from a kind of like my own journey.
Right.
So how I find out about cryptos and how I find out about blockchain, so people can know that you don't have to be a programmer to know this stuff. You don't have to be, a tech genius. I'm not. And although I do consult with them, and sometimes I do hire them for projects. And then I started with the very first thing that people should know about, which is the Bitcoin white paper.
Yep.
When I found out about Bitcoin, I started to read all these articles and I said, you know what? Time out. I need to go back and go to the source. So I went back and I read the Bitcoin white paper. And it's only about 7 to 8 pages, not very long. And there is some technical stuff in there. But for the most part, after I read that white paper, reading all those other articles made sense to me. So the first, a couple of chapters address, Bitcoin white paper. I actually have the abstract in there so they can read the abstract. And then I talk about technology, the
Okay.
terminology.
Before you get to the technology, let me interrupt you for a second. For those that don't know what a white paper is, it's like the business plan of what the coin is supposed to be. So whenever you invest or you look at an altcoin, Bitcoin, Ethereum, it doesn't matter. They're going to have white papers. That's the background that you should look at. You might not understand everything, and that's okay. But that is, like you said, the foundation of why something is created. So sorry for interrupting. I wanted to explain because I'm also an educator, a special educator. So I know sometimes we have to go back to the basics because we're so comfortable with talking about things. Go ahead.
So I'm glad you clarified that. So the terminology is very important, and it's a different way of speaking. There are things you can say, altcoin, cryptocurrency, digital signatures, hash graphs. So all those things. What does that mean?
Exactly.
So the book also has in one of the very first chapters definitions of what those very common terms are. As a matter of fact, I bolded some of the most important terms in the abstract and define them in the book. Then I proceed to the Ethereum white paper, because to understand blockchain technology, you have to understand Ethereum, because they really kind of took a very minimal use of blockchain and Bitcoin and exploded it into what it is now as a business solution. So the same approach for Bitcoin is later addressed in the book with the white paper for Ethereum. And then again, new definitions. And then after that is how you can use it, in your business, how you can use it to raise capital. What are the pitfalls? What are the regulations? There's a chapter on regulations. So I talk about the SEC, which is Security and Exchange Commission. I talk about the CFTC, the Commodities Futures and Trade Commission, the IRS. We all know what the IRS is. And I talk about the Department of Treasury, because they have, the KYC, AML, know your customer, anti-money laundering, and they have FinCEN, which is for Financial Crimes Network. So I talk about all those, so you can understand that people say it's not regulated. Well, that's not true. There are some regulations in place, for cryptocurrencies. It depends on which one it is and what it's being used for. And then at the end of the book, I talk about how you can make your own, blockchain solution, how you can make your own blockchain product or project in your company, and I give you steps to do it.
So I have a question for you, because we know that this is changing. This world is changing a lot. Law changes a lot. I know that in your book, when was it published?
2019.
Okay, so within the last 2 years, there's been a lot of developments in terms of how the Fed, the states, countries around the world are viewing, cryptocurrency, blockchain, and technology. So a lot of the laws might still be the same. A lot of court cases might happen. How are you? I know that in your classes you probably do updates, but are you thinking about updating your book, especially from the legal perspective, because some of them things are evolving and changing. Definitions are changing. What are your thoughts about that?
So excellent question. Again, we have very similar mindset. So I am going to write a Blockchain or Die second edition, and you may have heard that first on this podcast. So I've been thinking about it, but the reason why I'm going to write it is because, like Jacqui was saying, it's evolving. So
Yeah.
this book was designed to be a fundamental book. I don't think this book will ever become irrelevant, because you should always know the foundation, right? I didn't write about the things that are happening in the moment. I wrote about the foundations going back even before Bitcoin.
Yeah.
People realized that Bitcoin was not the first cryptocurrency. It was some of the first ones that go around since when? 1988. And there was actually an article in The Economist called "The Rise of the Phoenix," where they describe a virtual currency that would replace a global currency that would replace fiat currencies being like the dollar, the yen, the pound, the sterling, etc. So they were talking about that since 1988. When people say this is a fad, I say two things. One, Bitcoin's been around for over 10 years. And two, it's been talked about and it's been experimented for the past 30 years. It's not a fad, it's evolution.
Yep.
So the book that I'm going to be writing, I haven't finalized the approach yet, because I don't want it to be a pure legal book.
Yeah.
But what's important people to know is, if you're starting a business, or if you want to create a token, or if you want to create a blockchain company, you have to know how to comply with the law.
Yes, you do.
And to that end, there will be some, like this book has some legalities in it. There will be a section that will address that. And there's court cases, there's laws being already passed, and there's laws that are being proposed right now in U.S. House of Representatives, as well as other countries.
Yep.
That will have an impact on it. I mean, China outlawed mining for cryptocurrencies, and then what happened? China was the greatest source of mining, but as a country for Bitcoin. And what happened after they took all the miners off the blockchain? Other countries stepped up and picked up the slack.
Yep. And I know, as a Bitcoin miner, my rig is earning more Bitcoin. And for those that don't understand how a Bitcoin mining rig works, I'll just give you a quick overview. If you have a credit card, your bank has to verify that the fees that are charged on it are valid. And so as a result of that, you might have a charge declined if they think it's not, good, or it might go through. But the banks they charge fees and they get rewarded for that. Well, the same thing with Bitcoin mining rigs. Anytime that someone buys Bitcoin on an exchange, that transaction has to be verified. So that means that a computer has to verify that that is a legit transaction. When that verification happens, the computer, or the system of computers that are doing that, get rewarded Bitcoin. So in my rig, I get daily Bitcoin because my machine is verifying transactions 24/7, because things are happening globally. So it's an amazing situation. And like you said, when China took off their Bitcoin rigs, my machine still had to verify the same number of transactions or more, because there were less machines. So it's earning more. So I'm glad to hear that you're going to be doing an addition to that. I think that that's great. I just also want to share with everyone that I'm also a consultant, and in exploring cryptocurrency, I realized how people sometimes don't have certain things in place. And I know Eric can feel the same way. If you don't have a will, if you don't have your estate plan in place, and you are looking at any of these wealth organizers, you want to make sure that your family knows where your wallets are, how to access it. Otherwise, it's going to be out there in the internet, on the blockchain platforms, and the generational wealth that you're trying to create for them is not going to be enjoyed by them. So have you found that when you've talked to people that they haven't had that aha moment? I mean, I've talked to some people and they just are realizing, oh yeah, I need to kind of do this a little bit differently.
Yeah, so I mean, I haven't had many discussions about this, but when I do talk to people about, trust in the states, after you set one up, one of the key things you should decide is, when you have a major life event changing your life, marriage, children, grandchildren, and influx of wealth or some type of value that you don't have in your current will, you need to include it. So if you bought 50 Bitcoin for $1,000, about 7-8 years ago, you are now flush with Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And if they don't have, if they don't have the ability to access that, whether you have a soft wallet or a hard wallet or a paper wallet, whatever it is, if they can't get to it, you can leave your entire estate to somebody, but if they can't get to it, they can't get to it. So you have to not only leave the ability to get to it, but you'll have to leave the how you want to disperse it in the will or in the trust. And that way you're covering both ends, how you want to disperse it and how they can access it.
Exactly. And that's something, I mean, you are definitely a very prolific writer and a very, excellent writer with all the various things, the nitty gritties that you definitely need in the blockchain. I've created an organizer from the estate planning side, not from the legal side, but more for how do you organize that information, just because I'm a problem solver and I saw that was a problem that people needed. So again, both Eric's links for his books as well as my link for my organizer will definitely be below. We've covered a lot today. I know we're going to be covering more topics because for this area, we both have a love and a passion to make sure that people, both individuals, as well as lawyers, as well as legislators, as well as, families or businesses, any category, that they have that knowledge so they can be empowered and feel comfortable in making the decisions that they want to make, and that they're not influenced by someone else's say-so, because again, everyone has to do the research. But are there any last minute thoughts that you want to share with those that are listening today?
I'll just say two things real briefly. Don't be intimidated. Don't let this opportunity pass you by. You have to start somewhere. And whether you start by taking a class, whether you start by reading a book, or whether you start by talking to somebody in earnest, don't let this time pass you by. One of my college classmates, I told him about blockchain technology in 2017, and he had me organize just yesterday. I did a speech to his one of his business groups, and he said, "Listen, if I had listened to Eric then, I didn't listen, I would be in a totally different situation right now." So now he's starting, but he's starting 4 years later. But you know what? It's better than starting 4 more years later.
No, you're right. You're right.
Get started now. Don't be intimidated. Don't think you've already missed out. You have not. It's still very young. It's still growing at a great speed. So start now. That's number one. Number two, the Blockchain or Die ebook is only 99 cents. So there is no price barrier for you to learn about this at your own pace on your own computer or your tablet or your cell phone. It's 99 cents for a reason. I'm trying to share the knowledge. So the ebook is there for you to buy. I tell people, buy some for your friends, buy some for your family. You'll go to Starbucks and spend $8 on a cup of coffee. You can spend $8 sharing this knowledge, this transformational, life-changing. It changed my life. It changed Jacqui's life. It can change yours too. So 99 cents, share the wealth, share the information, and then decide where you want to go from there.
Yep. And one last thing before we log off, and definitely everyone like and subscribe so you can stay tuned for future episodes. Be careful where you get your advice from, because there are a lot of legitimate sites out there, but there are also a lot of sites that are just providing information. So that way you will log on and possibly put some money into their website, and the sites themselves might be questionable. So you just have to do your research, and it's okay to be cautious. It's okay to be slow. But again, there is a lot of possibility here, especially the creativity and the technology. I mean, we haven't even talked about the NFT world, the non-fungible token world, and how that is being used, for fundraising for charities and and in the commerce. And that's going to be a whole nother conversation and topic. And Eric, I don't know if I've told you about this, but that is an area that I'm in the process of writing about. So I'm super excited about that because of the fact that the people I'm meeting and the conversations that I'm having around the world, it's just amazing, just amazing. So everyone definitely, Eric's links will be in the podcast below. Do you want to mention one more time, Eric, how they can reach out to you?
You can contact me at Eric, ERIC .Guthrie, GUTHRIE at betterwe, one word.com. You can find me on Facebook at Blockchain or Die. You can find me on Instagram at Blockchain or Die as well. And the website, which we're currently actually in the process of revising, is blockchainordie.org.
Awesome. That's awesome.
reach me.
All right, everyone. Have a great day. Definitely. It's been a pleasure talking to you, Eric. I know we're going to talk again. Thank you so much for being on. And everyone, be kind to each other.